Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Wear It Purple Day webinar. Thank you for joining. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Jesse. My pronouns are he, him, and I work in the student success team with Melbourne University. So today we're here to have a chat about Wear It Purple Day, what Wear It Purple Day is, and sort of get that discussion going. We do have panelists joining us shortly, so we will have a chat with each of those. Now, before I start, I would like to do an acknowledgement of country. So the University of Melbourne acknowledges the traditional owners of the lands on which of our campuses are situated. We pay our respects to elders, both past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Australians who have made a contribution to the life of the university community. So, coming up today, we do have a few guest speakers who we will be chatting with. Firstly, we have Rick, who is the GSA LGBTIQ officer, and will be having a chat with us about Wear It Purple Day. We also have Amelia Bright, who will be joining us as the UMSU Queer Office Bearer, and we'll be having a chat also about her role and what Wear It Purple Day is to her. We also have Tesla Kavanagh, who is one of the Pride in Action Network committee members, who will be having a chat with us from her perspective. And we have a lovely community member, Joseph French, who's popped along as well to have a chat about his background. So what I might do is I might just quickly go over, for those that are new and don't know much about Wear It Purple Day, I might give us a little bit of a background about what it is. So Wear It Purple Day started in 2010, and it was a response to global stories of real teenagers, real heartache, and real stories across the world. And started as a way to help raise awareness, raise support, help combat some of that bullying, and give an outlet to provide acceptance on people's sexuality or their gender identity, and show that no matter who you are, no matter where you are, you're accepted and you're loved, no matter what your sexual preference, what your gender identity is, or anything. So we're wanting to get that word out. We want people to know that they are safe, they are welcome in the community, and we're here to support them. So on that note, what I might do is I might hand over firstly to our first guest speaker, Rick. If you would like to jump online, Rick, if you could give us just a quick hello, a bit of background around your story. If you can give us some info around your role and what you hope to achieve and what Wear It Purple Day is to you.
Oh, thank you, Jesse, for giving me this wonderful opportunity to be on this privileged event, Wear It Purple Day. My name, I go by Rick or Ricki now. My pronouns are they, them, and her. I'm a transgender woman of First Nation heritage from the Stolen generation. I've come from health social work background for 25 years. Then went into teaching, retrained as a teacher, and found that as I finally affirmed myself later in life, that I had difficulty in obtaining employment as a teacher because my presentation of my gender was not concurrent with a heteronormative school system in Victoria, and I presume anywhere in Australia at the present time. So henceforth, I went to Melbourne University, my Master of Education last year, specialising in diversity, and found that there is a need for better awareness for supporting queer teachers and students, especially in the first 3 years of high school settings. So my role at University of Melbourne presently is the elected LGBTIQ officer. So we look after all students in the postgraduate space, domestic and international. We're all part of the one family. So it's important that we acknowledge that everyone is on a journey one does not necessarily able to identify themselves at a particular time, at a particular age. This can occur throughout the lifespan. So my message is that it's okay to explore oneself and their identity. It's all a lifelong journey. And it doesn't matter if you're, it shouldn't matter whether you're 8 or with you're 80. It's okay to be at any age to come out and enjoy being your true self. As for myself, at 50, I came out as a transgender woman, very proud to be. I have a number of lived disabilities, so it makes it hard. But I feel that my voice now can be a way forward for every person at Melbourne University, especially because I'm still finishing my master's in social policy and my doctorate at another space where I really want to change the way structures, heteronormative structures, still sometimes don't allow us to express ourselves in the way that we want to be as everybody else in the community. I will try not to speak too much because I don't want my voice. It is a privilege to be on this space, but I want everyone who is listening to reflect on your life as a young person and what it was like for you when you first started high school and trying to connect with other people, and what it would be like if you didn't feel that you were not the same as other people, or you were born in a body that is kind of going against what your brain is telling you, what that discomfort might feel like. And consider that for some people, they carry it through a lifetime. And it can be quite confronting. So my journey has been always to speak, to have a voice, and to create a sense of allyship where we can all come together and support each other, our uniqueness that we bring to this space. For Wear It Purple Day for me is really celebrating life and experience and allowing young people that opportunity that we are a generation, some of us who've lived for many years, who haven't had the privilege of Wear It Purple Day or a space to allow us to be ourselves safely. So you are loved. It's going to be okay. It will get better. And just to connect with the community. If you cannot find it within your home spaces, reach out, because there are many lovely services now that can connect you to a community that really cares. Thank you, Jessie.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that, Ricki. And thank you for sharing your background and a bit about your story. It's so lovely to be able to get to know you on that level and get to hear about what you've been through and what makes you you today. As you say, we do have a long way to go and there is a lot for us to do, but I do want to thank you for sharing that with us. Now, unfortunately, our next speaker is having technical difficulties trying to access the webinar, and we're trying to work with her. So what we'll do is we might hand over to our community guest speaker, Joseph, who's gonna come up and have a chat with us about what his story is, a bit about his background, and just what Wear It Purple Day means to him. So Joseph, if you would like to jump on and just give us a bit of a background.
Hello. Hi. Ooh.
Hello, there we are. Joseph, amazing. If you could just give us a bit of a background, Joseph, we'd love to know a bit about yourself and what Wear It Purple Day is for you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Joseph. I go by he and him for my pronouns. My background is I'm still only 22 years of age, so high school for me was still quite recent when you really put it into a time span frame. And Wear It Purple Day was something that had only just started to really build up momentum during my years in high school. About 2016 is when I graduated. I had found at that point going through high school was a bit difficult when you do start to understand that you may not be like everyone else. And coming from a regional town of far north Queensland, it is a bit of a sheltered life that you do tend to lead. So you don't have a lot of resources on hand at the time, and that does make it very difficult during high school. That's why when I found out about Wear It Purple Day, I knew the importance of this for myself and for other kids like me, because there were other kids in my school who weren't as comfortable to come out to be who they were during their high school years. So Wear It Purple Day was almost like a small foot in the door to opening up a larger conversation in the community that often doesn't get talked about a lot. I managed to, during my grade 11 and 12 years, sort of open that conversation with a lot more people, and included teachers and staff and other students in creating a GSA club, and sort of helping those community members that didn't quite feel safe enough or comfortable enough in their community. During the years after high school, I then continued those things. Where at Purple Day, we made public events, made resources for those who are in smaller communities in far north Queensland to be able to find their tribes and find their groups to connect with other people, whether that be in person where we had events, or online resources and community events as well. So once we'd started working with that, we found out it was so nice to have all these members join us and realize how many of us there are together, and that we aren't really alone. We do sometimes feel like that, and it is hard during those stages, but things like Wear It Purple will open the world up to you and realize you aren't so alone, and there's a lot of us here and we all support you and we all love you. Absolutely, it does get better. All we can do is stick together and, you know, push forward through. So I think that's why Wear It Purple Day is so important these days, especially in the current day and age that we live in. We really need to all, you know, keep the conversation going.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that, Joseph. And I absolutely agree with you. Just a bit of context for everyone. Joseph and I grew up in the same town for the past few years up in Cairns for far north Queensland. So we have worked together in some drag shows and some performances, and sort of helped each other through some moments, and helped each other grow. So it's always great to hear from a familiar face a bit about their story and some more information. Unfortunately, it looks like our technical difficulties are still playing up and we can't seem to get our other panelists on. So what we might do is we might jump over to some of the questions that we have around Wear It Purple Day, and we will see if we can run through some of those. While we're going through these questions, also note that at the bottom of your screen is a Q&A box. So if you have any questions yourself that you would like to ask all the panelists, or if you would like to ask any panelists directly a particular question, please pop it in the Q&A box and it will be anonymous, and I will be able to ask the questions amongst our panelists and myself. So
Jesse, can I also quickly jump in? If it is possible in time, I've written a letter to myself about my life experience for Wear It Purple Day. So if there's time, I'd love to read it out and
Absolutely,
just to share
Ricki,
that as my story. Yeah, thank you. Oh, would you like me to do it now? Oh, okay. I'll be very quick. Good morning, everyone. My name is Ricki Spencer. My pronouns are they, them, and her. I am from the stolen generation, and I'm going to tell you about my lived experiences of being in a heteronormative world through my truth-telling, my way. I am a 52-year-old transgender person living with a disability. I wake up in the morning and I look in the mirror, and the mirror shouts through my skin that I am 52, fat and unattractive. You should lose weight. You should be healthier. You should be happy. But why are you living your life the way you are? Why are you dressed the way you do? Why do you even bother to brush your lifeless hair? You eat too much. You take too much medication. You walk too slow. You take up too much room on public transport. You have too many opinions. Your voice is too ambiguous. How dare you speak for other women? You are only a trans woman. You don't have the biology. You are not seen as desirable by men. You are only a fetish, something to be used and abused in the dark and kept away from the public gaze. You have no right to be here. How dare you call yourself from the stolen generation? You are not black enough. Your skin and hair are not beautiful from our ancestor eyes. You're not white enough. You take up space in our cisgendered world where we interact with others like us who are able-bodied, perfumed with privileged and labeled clothing. We walk quick. We walk fast on the busy roads, drive in our beautiful new cars. How dare you take time to slow us down and force us to look upon your embodiment of shame. I then look away from the mirror and I reflect on my life and I start to reconsider the voices in my head. Why do I feel this way? Why does the mirror speak to me in such disgusted tones of hatred and mockery? It purifies my soul for its disdain of its loathiness of my existence. But I begin to realize something. It is not the mirror that is speaking to me, but it is experience that I have faced. All my life of being marginalized, being someone who stood out like that spring flower in the winter night, being someone or something that is ridiculed, whose body was weaponized against them. I can no longer walk like I used to. I've had my mental illnesses for over 40 years. You can't see them, but I feel them. I digest chemicals so I can feel normal like you. I lead my life the best way I can. And now I am living my life through my journey in my battered body, and I am beginning to love myself. I now look in the mirror and I see a beautiful woman. Her eyes are still full of life, passion, and desires, and her aging skin has weathered her pain and now shields her from the disdaining eyes of hate that she faces on a daily basis. I am a transgender 52-year-old woman who wants to make a difference in the world. Through her advocacy of her First Nation country. And yes, she has disabilities. Yes, she may walk with a stick and gets out of breath. Yes, she may take up room on buses, trains, and seats throughout urbanized spaces. But she has the right to be here just like you. And although she may now require personal services, she still feels part of the queer community. She hopes to reconnect with her birth mother and father and embrace the love and acceptance and find her mob so one day she can travel through dream time and be back with the elements in my heart. I can hear her screams calling me. I hear you, Mum. It's not your fault. I'm okay now. I know you're waiting for me. She is alive in my heart. She will embrace every breath with appreciation of her embodiment. And she wants you to know that she is a survivor and she will survive. And that one day she hopes her lasting footprints will say that she existed and meant something to someone. And she wants you to know that being a trans woman with a disability is another way of living. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you. Thank you, Jessie, for allowing me to read my story.
Absolutely, Ricki. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. That was absolutely beautiful. And I think you've just given us a whole nother level of an insight into who Ricki is. That message is deep. I think that will mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And being confident enough and comfortable enough to share that with us, I think is so beautiful. We've just had a message come through that I want to reiterate. The message has just said, Ricki, you are such a beautiful person. And I've thought so ever since we've met. So thank you so much for sharing your letter. That speaks so powerfully to us all. And I couldn't agree more. That was such a beautiful letter. And to hear that from you and to have the confidence to share that with you is just amazing. So thank you so much for that, Ricki. What we might do is we might continue on into some of our questions now. So there's, just reiterating, Joseph French, our lovely community member, Ricki Spencer, our lovely GSA LGBTIQ officer, and myself, Jesse, who also identifies as a gay man living in Melbourne. We'll be answering all these questions and more that you post in the Q&A group chat. So please pop some questions in and we will continue on. So Ricki and Joseph, if I can get you guys to pop on your cameras and your microphones, and we'll just go around and get your opinion. So the first question I would like to start off with, and Ricki, I'll get you to answer this first, is how would you explain Wear It Purple Day to somebody outside the LGBTQ plus community, and why is it so important?
And thank you for that really important question. And I do get asked that question quite a lot. And what I'd like to kind of share with everyone is that it's a way of connecting with people. It's a way of validating. We live in a world, as we know, that is dominated by binary notions of male and female and heteronormity all around us. And for young people growing up, it's difficult because teaching and schools, which people spend 12 years of their life, 8 hours a day, the curriculum, the information that's being taught has been written by white privileged males who've been predominantly heterosexual. So the messages within curriculum are their dominant discourse is on living in heteronormative ways, which is male-female in heterosexual relationships, and projecting a way of living that has excluded many of us and given us a sense of trying to find our identity if we're living in families that don't reflect our being. It's really difficult. So Wear It Purple Day is a way for everybody to kind of maybe reflect a time in your life when you were young, when the struggles you may have found about your own gender or sexuality or fitting in. Maybe you felt you were too big or too small, you didn't like your hair, there was something physically. But imagine if everyone around you just didn't feel the same that you did, and that you sounded different, that you looked different, and it was something that you couldn't change. You couldn't color your hair because who you are inside, it's there. So Wear It Purple Day, it recognizes that, you are valued, you are important, and it's a way of finally being accepted, something that many people take for granted. So Wear It Purple Day is a way for resilience and really trying to change young people who are LGBTIQ, who are overrepresented in suicide ideation through mental health, more accessing of mental health and school bullying, that we care and you are important and life will get better. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that, Ricki. Joseph, I'd love to hand this over to you as well for the same question, just to hear what you would use to explain Wear It Purple Day to someone outside the community.
Absolutely. Just like Ricki said, it is about validation and acceptance. It's one of those things when we first find out there are others like us and they feel the same way as us and we know we aren't alone. It's just nice to know that we aren't the odd bunch anymore. We're not the one in the million. There's lots of us. There's a crowd of us and we stand strong. It's really about learning acceptance for ourselves by finding it through others. I myself managed to find my tribe through Wear It Purple Day. The first event I went to, I managed to make connections, and it was just so important that we had that opportunity to actually make those connections. Without something as important as Wear It Purple Day, starting conversations, starting groups, and starting communities, we wouldn't be so together as we are today. And it's just so important that we have stuff like that.
Amazing, absolutely. No, I agree with you, and I think that's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. I guess my view on Wear It Purple Day and how I would explain it to other people is just to look back on my story and what I went through. As a gay man growing up, I was raised in a very Catholic, very traditional Italian family where it was very taboo. The topic was never brought up. I didn't have somebody to talk to. And growing up in a town where it wasn't very accepted, I never knew who I could speak to. So when I came to actually build up the confidence and come out to my parents at 17, they kicked me out and fortunately cut off all connection to me. So I was out on the street to find somewhere else to live, to try and build my whole life, because I didn't have that support and I didn't know where I could go. So for me, Wear It Purple Day is so important to get that word out there, get the awareness around so that people know that there are places you can go, there is support networks available, and that you're not alone when you're going through this time. It is a very confronting time for a lot of people growing up, like Joseph said, thinking that maybe you are an odd one out because everyone else that you hang out with isn't interested in the same things that you're interested in, or the guys that you hang around with might be talking about women and that's not your interest. So you do feel like the odd one out. But days like today where we get the word out and people know that it is accepted, it is normal, and there are people around that do love you and do support you, I think is what makes such a difference. And just that one little 12-year-old kid growing up, not knowing who he can talk to, seeing this and knowing that there is people around that I can reach out to might mean the difference between having a happy and full life or having a life cut short. So I do think that Wear It Purple Day is an extremely important day. So we might pop on to the next question, which I might throw to Joseph first this time. And the question is, this year's theme is start the conversation and keep it going. Do you, Joseph, find it difficult to start conversations with people around inclusion and equality? And how do you maintain the conversation?
I think with that one, starting the conversation, I feel it can be a bit daunting at times because this is still a society where unfortunately it is still not widely spoken about, which is why starting the conversation, it may be hard, but it is so necessary to be done because it is really all about education and inclusion. And starting that conversation is the very first step to finding out other people's views and their beliefs and opening their minds up to other people's views and beliefs. And that's the only way education can really happen, is by having a conversation about these things. I find keeping the conversation going is also very important because there are times where you feel there's a bit of a lull or a gray zone where nothing's really been spoken about. And so just repeating that sort of, how do you feel still about this? Or have you changed your opinions or ideas? Or is there something you'd like to discuss further? It's important to keep that going because, ideas and feelings change all the time. You may walk in with a conversation not knowing a lot of things and not being open to it. And through education and inclusion and conversation, you change your mind or you grow and learn and realize, oh, I didn't know what that was. Sorry, I fully support you now. And I think that's why a conversation needs to keep going and keep starting. So yeah, start those small conversations with someone to see where it goes.
Absolutely. I think you're 100% right there, Joseph. It is that initial step that you need to start that conversation to show another perspective and I guess help educate people who may not be in the knowledge or may not know some of these things. And I personally can also speak that even being part of the LGBTQI plus community, there's still a lot of information that I'm not across, that I don't know, and I'm still constantly learning from other members of the community. So definitely agree with you there. Ricki, I would love to throw over to you the same question. I guess, do you find it difficult starting conversations around that inclusion and equality? And I guess, how do you go about maintaining those conversations?
See, for me, it happens automatically because of my presentation, I guess, that when people see me, the question is sometimes, is that a male or female? And so I can tell you that my direct experiences, even in healthcare, is a good example, because the conversation begins when I fill out a form, and the form doesn't acknowledge or have a space for me to affirm how I feel about myself, because the binary indicators of male or female are quite difficult for someone who's either gender fluid or gender non-conforming, or who's trans. And filling out a medical form, you're trying to make sense of who you are. And when all medical records around you give you a name and assigned gender indicator, it's really difficult, because a conversation is one on clarity and trying to validate your existence. So it happens all the time when I fill out a form of any service that I meet, or whether I'm going inside the bank and they're looking at my ID and looking at me and seeing, are you that person? So it's really difficult. The conversation begins with almost authenticating, am I who I say I am? And that's a really difficult thing sometimes to encounter, and tiring, that you cannot just be taken at your word who you are. You have to explain the story behind who you are. And that takes a lot of energy and time. And starting the conversation is so important, because the conversations that we have in general society all around us have been framed through a language of power, of dominant discourses and ideologies, which have been based primarily on heteronormative ways of living and seeing the world through the lens of schemas that have been designed primarily by men for men. So when you're challenging that, you're disrupting that way of thinking, disrupting that way of perceiving, looking at the world. It can be confronting to somebody who has had no awareness of that difference in thinking of oneself as being trans or gender queer, or LGBT, or within the LGBTI spectrum of identity. And what I say to people around inclusion, it's almost as though you have to say to someone, it's as though you were on another planet sometimes and you didn't recognize anyone like yourself, but they might have the same form as yourself, but they were completely different. And how do you join something that is different, that doesn't fit in a certain way that others say? So it's always important to have that conversation, because you have to remember that when someone is 4, 5, 3, and they're in a world surrounded by a way of seeing the world through the lens of the heterosexual world, and they have no developing concept of being the way they're feeling, then you can imagine the trauma and anxiety that's faced if you're trying to connect, and that connection, there's a disconnect. So starting that conversation is the first way of forming a relationship with others that allows you into your space of your true lived experience, and understanding that we are, as much the power of our gender is the embodiment of what you see us, and then validate what we feel about ourselves. Thank you.
Absolutely. No, thank you for sharing that, Ricki. It is very important. I do actually want to keep you talking there for a second, Ricki, just because I've had a question come in that I think ties in very well with your answer. One of our attendees has just asked if we could speak of what some positive and negative experiences in healthcare are for people that identify as part of the LGBTQI community. And I know you were just mentioning, Ricki, about having to fill out forms and not having an option there that caters for someone like yourself. Do you want to talk about some maybe positive or negative experiences?
Please,
Absolutely.
if I may share my experience I had yesterday. And I went into a service to get my heart checked through an ultrasound to see the flow. And from the first moment I walked into the door, the receptionist looked at my form, and my doctor had written on a form, trans, identifies as trans, but my official name on that is Rick, but I go by Ricki. So I explained that to the receptionist, and of course she still misgendered me. So I thought, okay, and I didn't know what the procedure would involve. So when I went into the room with the clinician who took the process of it, one, there was no eye contact, so none of the, and I understand that maybe because of COVID, wearing off the masks, he just said, strip off, take your tops off and just put this robe on. Now, for someone who's trans, it's quite confronting for me as a trans woman to have a male, one that I corrected him twice by saying, oh, it's Ricki, it's not Rick, I'm a trans woman, who didn't even acknowledge that, told me to take my tops off, then told me to lie on a robe that didn't fit me, so I'm exposed. They then asked me to move my hand a certain way, and that feeling of being unvalidated at that moment, I knew I was being seen as a male, but my body felt so violated in the sense that my breasts are something personal. I don't share that with anybody yet. And to have somebody kind of put a foreign equipment near it and roughly not telling me what they're going to do, I felt so unvalidated at that experience that I had a tear in my eye. And I didn't know, and then he said to me when he finished, put your clothes on. So it was and walked out the room. So you imagine, I felt so, I don't know, I didn't know what to think. Is my body disgusting? I didn't know, because the whole experience was just horrible. And then when I left, I finished, he didn't look up to me. He was too busy texting. So I walked away feeling like so unvalidated, so unsupported, so violated, that I thought to myself, oh my God, I've got to change the healthcare system. I've got to keep advocating, because when you do feel different, especially around our bodies, and I was thinking of a young person, what would they be like if someone was prodding and touching them without explaining what they're doing, when their body is weaponized against them? So I just wanted to share that experience, that we really have to be letting people, it's so important that the whole community understands why we have events like this, because we all have to interact together. We all have to work together. We all have to use services. And it's important that people understand our uniqueness, because that experience just, it threw me, and to walk away there, and I had to catch the bus, and I have a walking stick because it's so hard. I really felt so, what has my life come to? That, I'm presented like this, treated as though I'm an object of disdain. And yeah, sorry for talking on about, but I just wanted to share that to say that is what a lived experience of someone who's an older trans woman with a disability, whose body, is viewed upon with such disdain and misgendered, and you walk away from that experience just so sad, that you feel so, why am I like this? Am I so ugly? Am I so, and I say it not, I don't need this, I'm not looking for the poor me. It's more like, no, this has to change, because I don't want other people to go through these experiences. And these experiences don't get reported. They don't get actioned. And that's why, if I can send a message to whoever's listening out there, if you are in a health space, you're learning to be a medical practitioner or social worker or teacher or architect, engineer, please, please, consider other people in your community who don't feel connected with their body. If you're designing things, you're working in spaces, just acknowledge us, just take the time to speak to us. Please ask us what our pronouns are, and explain to us how we need to connect with you to do a particular service, so that we feel, all we want to feel is just like everyone else, to fit in, but just to be respected about our state. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing. And Ricki, I'm so sorry to hear that's what you went through. That is such a negative experience, and one that people shouldn't have to go through. So thank you for sharing that. But I do want to re-emphasize also what Ricki said, is that feel free to ask questions. I know I'm speaking for myself personally, but most members of the LGBTQI plus community that I know are more than happy to answer questions, as long as you're asking them in an inquisitive and an informing way. We're more than happy to tell you what our pronouns are. We're more than happy to tell you what we identify as, and we're more than happy to chat with you and give you some sort of knowledge around that education. It's more when it comes in a detrimental approach, or when you're doing it in sort of a really negative, nasty way, or when you're not even acknowledging the person in front of you, or acknowledging, I guess, what our pronouns are, what we've told you we identify as. That's where people get hurt, and that's where people go through such negative experiences like Ricki. So definitely understand it's something that reach out for, ask about, learn about, let us tell you, and we're more than happy to share it with you. Joseph, I might also, because I think it's such an important question, I might throw this over to you as well. Could you speak on, I guess, some positive or negative experiences that you might have had in the healthcare system as an LGBTQI plus person?
Absolutely. Recently, I have been doing some testing in healthcare checkups. I'm investing in doing a clinical study. So that's like a full checkup, everything perfect in your order, and, body and health and everything. And going into a GP or a general doctor's practitioner and having them ask questions, and, you get to basic health history, everything's fine. We all know about that. That's good. And it gets to say partners and relationships, and, are you currently active with a partner? And you go, well, yes. And they go, oh, any, taking pregnancy tablets? And it's like, well, no, actually, I'm in a same-sex relationship. And you almost get a pause in the air, and it's like, oh, I don't know anything about that. And it's, as a doctor, and like for a medical, it's your healthcare, it's almost kind of feels like a topic that's not important enough to be taught about. Because when you go through that and they go, oh, I might ask someone else, or I might have to Google about this response because I don't know how to do this, or I don't know if this is allowed or that affects you in any way. And it just kind of makes you feel like you aren't important enough to be taught about with same-sex relationships and, different genders and binary. And it's just like, when it is something as important as healthcare, even just the basic knowledge of pronouns and knowing same-sex relationships and things just makes so much more of a difference in feeling that they do know about us, they include us, and that we aren't almost a specialist, case. It's not, oh, I might refer you to someone else because I wasn't taught this. So absolutely, healthcare, I think, is an important topic to bring up when it comes to, the inclusion that we have today's society. But yeah, I've certainly had some positive experiences with doctors, especially, you do get some cases where you walk in, they go, oh yeah, absolutely, that's all good, that's great. Are you currently on PrEP, or do you have this with your partner? And it's nice having that, not a pause of, let me explain how this works to you so you can do your job. It's, oh, I know that, let's keep going. So I think it's so important to have that in healthcare.
Absolutely. No, totally agree with you. And I do want to add on to the positive experiences. Is I know one experience I had going to a doctor's just to get a health check is the proactiveness of them advising, okay, would you like us to pop you with someone from the LGBTQI community, or would you like us to pop you someone who identifies as a heterosexual? And for me, that was almost a shock back. Oh, there's an option. Okay. And like I could pick it. But having that option is a positive thing as opposed to walking in and then getting an experience like Joseph said, where you may be with someone, they're assuming that you're heterosexual and they're asking you these questions. And then when you say same-sex couple, that initial, and I wouldn't necessarily say all the time it's disgust or hate, but it's more the, oh, I don't know about this. I've never looked into it. And there's no, I guess, self-inquiry or self-teaching to actually go out and learn about it and have some basic knowledge, so that when you come across it, you're not throwing people off or you're not giving a negative experience. You're being able to say, look, I know this much about it, but I'm willing to learn, or I can help you this much because this is what I know, as opposed to going, oh, it's not my area, I'll get somebody else. We want to be included. So taking that opportunity to learn a little bit more, I think, is what makes such a different approach in a healthcare setting. Yeah, there's so many areas we can improve on that, but I think starting with that is a good approach for it. So from here, I might go on to our next question. Is just with regards to the conversation. So Ricki, this one I might toss to you first, is why do you find it important for the conversation to continue 365 days of the year and not just on Wear It Purple Day?
That's another good question. And again, because it's an everyday event for us. It's a lived experience that we do. We live in a social world, so we connect every day through communication to other people. And it's about highlighting that our authenticity of who we are is represented in our expression through the way we see the world. And it's a way that we want other people to connect. We want to connect with people, and we want people to see us as how we see ourselves. And that, whether we're using a health service, whether we're using an education service, whether we're going into the postal office or shopping, we want to be able to connect and that be validated rather than be stared at, glared at. And part of, while we're still invisible in some spectrums, if you look at the census, we look at how services aren't necessarily planned for our community because there aren't boxes for other people to express their gender identity through that. And it is problematic because sometimes people assume everything in the world is fixed, and it's not. We know life journeys are different. People come out, I hate the word coming out, because it's about our authenticating ourselves at that time in space and place. And as much as everyone else has that validation through their whole life, from the day they're born, they're assigned a color, they're assigned a gender, to the day they die, that they're assigned a gender on their tombstone. And people don't think about that, but they say 45-year-old blah 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 male. But what if you don't identify as male? Do you want your lasting footprint you want your footprints to reflect clearly who your lived experiences are? Because it's not just for you, but it's for the new generations coming up to know that we've always existed. So that maybe because we're not written in media spaces all the time or advertised in books or journals, we still want a place to know that we have lived, that we've been here, and that if someone else is born and it has a similar feeling to ourselves, they can at least reflect and say, there were people like myself, they did live. So for me, it's an everyday occurrence. Thank you for the question.
Absolutely. I love that, Ricki. And it's so true. I never myself personally even thought about looking forward to the tombstone and what would be on there. That's not something that crossed my mind. And even just hearing you say that now makes me think about what other situations, or what other scenarios are there that I haven't thought through, or that other people may not have thought through as well? So I think it's conversations like these that just spark that little bit of interest and, oh, let me go look into that. Oh, I never thought of that. Just getting those conversations going, I think, really helps with the whole community. Joseph, just yourself as well and your thoughts on it. 365 days of the year. Why is it important that this conversation is continued through those and not just on Wear It Purple Day?
I think it is so important that we do continue this a yearly thing, because we don't just stop being members of the LGBTQIA+ community because it's the other 364 days a year. You know, we are who we are every day, from the moment we wake up to the moment we go to bed. We live our authentic selves to the best of our ability, and without having that sort of inclusion every day, it makes it a bit more difficult for us to sort of know who we are or accept who we are if, you know, we're only being brought up once every few days a year. So I think keeping the conversation, even, you know, it doesn't have to be an everyday thing, you know, set a reminder in the morning, let's discuss. I think just bringing it up in, you know, weekly conversation, or, hey, you know, how's these things feeling? Are you feeling more included in the workplace, or your friends, or, you know, having those conversations again, keep the conversations going. If you have an issue or there's something you want to know, ask the conversation, start it. You know, you don't have to wait until one day a year to ask your questions and have all this misinformation on unsure or, you know, self-doubt for those other 364 days. You know, every day can be Wear It Purple Day. There's nothing stopping you from that.
Absolutely. No, 100% agree with you. I think, from my personal opinion, I think the reason for me why I believe this conversation particularly needs to continue 365 days of the year is precisely for the fact that Wear It Purple Day is a big celebration, and everyone, or a lot of people, are very supportive. A lot of people will wear purple. I know when I came to work this morning, my manager was wearing a purple shirt, and it was just the little things for me that I was like, oh, that's amazing. She's very supportive. I love that. So it's the little things like that. And because it's such a celebration, a lot of people from the community feel a lot more confident and a lot stronger and ready to tackle the challenges ahead, but that's for one day. So once the excitement and the enthusiasm of this day is over, you don't know what that person's going to go through. This time next week, they may have received bad information about their studies. They may receive a bad response from their manager. They may receive all this negative stuff that hits them at the one time, and that's the time when they really need to hear people talking about LGBTQI, and hearing that people talk about support and love and acceptance is right at that time. So if the conversation only happens on Wear It Purple Day, that poor person who's struggling next week won't have that support, won't have that inclusion. And that's where the negative sides of that can be quite severe. So simple things of like your manager reaching out to you and popping up some information they may have seen on Facebook about a LGBTQI event, or a little bit of trivia that they may have found out, just little things that keep the conversation going, or even being very direct and asking, how are you going? How is your community? Are there any issues? Are there any troubles that we can help with? Can I provide any support? I think little steps like that just show to us individuals that there is a genuine care and there is a genuine interest in our community and in our lives. And I think that's what makes a difference between having a wholesome and fulfilling life and struggling and potentially having a really short life. So I might pop over to the next one, is just with regards to what makes visibility and storytelling from LGBTQI members so powerful. Joseph, I might throw back to yourself. What makes it so powerful to hear from members like ourselves of the LGBTQI community?
Absolutely. I think it's all about, you know, relating to someone, really. Like, I managed to find myself through the members of the drag community. Now we have such out there and socially acceptable shows such as RuPaul's Drag Race, and through sort of learning backgrounds of these queens, you realize, oh, I kind of feel the same way that they do, or they talk about their home life. And, it's not just, it's more than beyond the reality TV of it all. And, the face of makeup behind this, there is a person, and you might identify with that person. A particular queen coming from a background of a family that doesn't accept them, or they don't understand them, and hearing their conversations and hearing the key words of going, that's like me. I relate to that. I understand what she's going through. I'm not the only one like this. I'm not the only one who doesn't have a family that accepts them. Or I'm not the only one that doesn't have a safe space to be included in. That, we are not alone in this. And being able to relate to people through their stories, whether it be exactly, who they are is how we are, or even small parts of, their everyday life, or an aspect of themselves or their personalities that we understand. It's knowing that that is out there, and that's not a wrong option, because some of us can feel sometimes that, being outspoken or flamboyant or introverted is almost, that's not an option. You shouldn't be like that. And so relating to people who are like that goes, oh, I am normal. I can be this. That's not an issue. So absolutely, all representation of all colors, and all diverse backgrounds and walks of life should be represented at all times. So that child, in high school or 16, or watching TV, can go, I get that person. I understand what they're talking about. I'm not alone. That's why I think representation is so important, especially for the youth.
Absolutely, 100% agree with you there, Joseph. Ricki, I might pop the same question to yourself. Why is visibility and storytelling from the LGBTQI plus community members so powerful?
Echoing everything that Joseph has just said, exactly. It's that sense of, because we are living in a world that's dominated by heteronormativity, whether it be through television, media, books, everything around. So a young person really has to kind of almost navigate and find a space where they can connect and feel, oh my gosh, that's how I feel. That's what's happening. For my generation, we grew up, we had absolutely nothing. All we had was the essence of ridicule, that if there was any gay portrayal in the 70s and 80s and even the 90s, it was something to be laughed at. It was something as a spectacle, as the something that has an illness, nothing of in terms of real lived worthiness of having an equal a relationship in the eyes of many. So for me, visible storytelling is so important, because it really highlights the intersectionality of our experiences. And the thing that unites us all in human is our vulnerability, our ability to say, this is what happens in life. This is what I experience. This is what I feel. We all feel emotions. We all have the emotion of hate, love, wanting, the need to be held, to be touched. We all have these feelings. We might seek it in different ways. We might look out. We might look a certain way or feel within our, we identify with not the body that we've assigned to at birth. And if you go through a life of where you're not able to be your true self, or authentic self, I should correct that, then what is the life there for? Do we really want to be cloaked in something that we don't really feel comfortable with, or doesn't connect with us, to our souls? So storytelling really does, especially for young people, it gives them a sense of hope, a sense of that, yes, one day you can be your true self, And when you do come out, whether it's at 14 or me as a trans person at 50, waking up in the middle of the night to think, oh my God, I can do this. I can wear clothes and colorful clothes and get my hormones and fall in love with my breasts and be the woman I've always known I was. And having that being able to verbalize that is such a powerful, enriching way. Language is power, and power is what the world is made up of. And we use our voices through and our bodies to position ourselves in the world around us. So we need for people to understand that we're here and that we have lived experience, we have feelings, and we live this 24 hours a day. And we need to remind everyone that please think, don't always presume. Life is a way that you never know. The child you have, a relative you don't know who what they might be inside. Not everyone is the same. Everyone has a different intersectionality of their experience. So it really becomes a sense of highlighting the diversity of all of us and giving everyone that opportunity to be themselves. Thank you, Jessie.
Absolutely. No, that's amazing. Thank you again for sharing that. So our next one that we have here, and this is our last question, unless any members of the community want to pop any questions in the Q&A, this is our last one that we have on here, so feel free to pop those through. But Ricki, I might pass it back to you. And just with regards to what is one conversation around inclusion or diversity that you wish more people were having? If you could pick out one particular conversation.
Okay, for me, it all boils down to having pronouns for me. And that is just from my lived experiences, where if you identify as cisgendered male or cisgendered female, it's a way of connecting that, because it allows our clothing should not be the total definition of who we are. We should be able to express ourselves in the rich tapestry of life and fabrics. And I love color. And if you probably can't see, my whole house is full of Indigenous expressions of color. And one thing I'd like to say with my heritage is that, we've used the colors of the world around us to embody ourselves. We're part of the land. And by recognizing that, yes, I am a trans woman, my pronouns are her, they, and them, I'm revealing something special about myself to you. And it's wonderful if you can reveal that to me, so that on some level we're connecting on an intimate friendship, that we really understand each other. And that's all I really, for me, that's the starting point of a conversation. It's authenticating ourselves to another human being. It's giving us that acceptance that we don't all have to look a certain way or be biologically presented a certain way. These are just concepts. I know it's a bit, philosophically based, but I just want everyone to reconsider gender, reconsider embodiment, start to look into the soul, and love comes from within the soul.
Absolutely. That's beautiful, and love that, Ricki. And I think that is definitely something that more people can do. It's not a hard task to include pronouns and to tell someone your pronouns, but it can mean a world of difference to those that are going through struggles. So I absolutely agree with you there. Joseph, just for yourself, if you had to pick one topic to have more of a discussion around, or that you wish people were having more of a discussion around, what would that be?
I would have to agree. I think pronouns are such an important first step for most people. It is such a simple thing that you can do to someone to show that you care and that you have interest in them. It's one of those things, if someone walks up to you and goes, "Oh, hi, lovely to meet you. What are your pronouns?" You go, "Oh, I'm not just a random person on the street." Like they they want to know so that they can genuinely make a connection with you. And, you know, I go, I am he, him. Thank you for asking. It's like, wow, okay, thank you. Like you, okay, I'm engaged with you in your, you know, genuine conversation now. And then having them again, like reiterate, like saying, you know, oh yes, he does this, or, and it's knowing that they've fully accepted it. They haven't just heard it once and sort of, you know, gone, oh, that's cool, and then got it wrong again. And, you know, it's so small, yet means so much to us. And I just think it is honestly one of those things. I think more places should be including it. I've done recently some Instagram lives with people, and we have included on our names, you know, he, him, her, they, you know, just small steps like that is just nice to have everyone included in, because in a world where, you know, like medical forms, it's just male or female, you sort of feel, oh, I'm not a part of this conversation then because I can't fit in those two boxes. You guys have fun without me. I don't belong here. And so just having those small little steps just really makes you go, oh, I can slot in right there. Awesome. I'm here. I'm present. So absolutely, pronouns are, I think, the best place to really kick this off.
Absolutely. And look, I think that actually ties in really well with the question we've just had come in from one of our attendees, is just asking how can the wider community be more inclusive day to day? So following on from that topic, I definitely agree. A simple way you can do it is adding your pronouns in your email signature. Or I do want to give a shout out to Emily, Helena, Liana, Miranda, and Rachel, who have got their pronouns in their Zoom display name. And it's a simple little thing that I know that I can chat to Liana, and if I need to refer to Liana, I can refer to her as she or her because of her pronouns being displayed. Little things like that make such a difference and mean that we can feel comfortable giving someone the correct pronouns or recognizing their pronouns. So to me, that's one way that communities can be more inclusive, is adding it into your signatures, adding it into your Zoom, pop it on your Facebook, wherever you're comfortable to put that out there. Love you to share that out there.
Jesse,
Ricki,
I was going to
yeah.
say, Jesse, if you might explain to people, because I've heard some people don't know how to do it. Did you want to just explain to people about the 3 dots?
If you
okay,
are able
yeah,
to,
sure.
just because mine's not showing
Sorry,
properly.
Dale. Yeah, if people just, if you hover around, I think to the right end of your screen, you'll see the button mute and 3 dots. And if you click on the little 3 dots, there's an option to rename. And that's just a wonderful way to start a conversation. And it validates the people in your Zoom class or activity you're doing that you're open to that. So if someone is frightened to talk about themselves in that way, it's a wonderful way to start a conversation in a positive way. It shows everyone else, like myself, oh, this person is accepting of this. They're okay with me presenting my way. They believe in that authentication of oneself through that pronoun, the use of pronoun. Pronoun is a very powerful way. I know some people think, oh, do you really need that? And I say, yes, we do, because our language is biased. It's biased because it was written by heteronormative white privileged men who didn't think about why should we include that. So it's important. It's a way, especially for young people, to know that, you know, one's body doesn't necessarily, that you're born with, reflect who you feel like. So it's a wonderful way. And as Joseph stated, it doesn't cost much. It only takes, I think, 10 seconds. But that 10 seconds will start a lifetime friendship maybe, or it will show a whole community that you are accepting of diversity. And that's the message for today. Just come out there, spread the love, you know, be a great ally, you know, include pronouns, you know, make that conversation why it's important. And I hope that our experiences today have given you hope that as a community that we're growing and that we're going to start to care more about each other and love each other in that way, that, you know, we have one life to live. And doesn't it feel better when you get on with people more than hate or the exclusion? exclusion is actually healthier for you. It allows you to live longer because the hormones released from exclusion are the same feelings you get from just the naturalness of happiness. So it's my little way of saying to everyone, it's a little gift that you can show for everybody else and say, look, I'm spreading a little bit of serotonin to you.
Oh, Ricki, that is amazing. I couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you so much for sharing that. And absolutely, if you have questions after this around changing your Zoom name or needing help popping things in, by all means, feel free to send me an email afterwards. My details are in the chat box, and I'm more than happy to help you with that.
And mine are too. People, if you're a graduate student, even if you're not LGBTIQ and you want to understand more, or you have a friend, please email me. I'm available. My details there. I'm easily contacted on all social media platforms. Be more than happy to spend time having a virtual coffee with you and just explaining how we can work better as a community. Thank you, Jessie.
No, that's perfect. Thank you, Ricki. One thing I would just like to cover, we are at the end of our questions. Now, I know this topic can be quite confronting for people, and I know that it could bring up emotions for a lot of people. So I do want everyone to know, both students and staff, there is the counselling and psychological services at the uni known as CAPS. Please, if you're feeling like you need support, or if you're feeling down or it's triggered some emotions, please make sure you reach out and access these services. They are completely free, so you don't have to worry about any cost involved. You can access CAPS either over the phone through 0383 446927, or you can email them through caps-reception@unimelb.edu.au. The other option, if it's outside the office hours, which I believe are 9 to 4, Monday to Friday, you're more than welcome. If you need emergency support or if you're really struggling, you can contact their after hours crisis support. So you can either call them over the phone through 1300 219 459. Or if you're not comfortable talking with someone, the great initiative they have, which I absolutely love, is you can text a number, and you can text 0480 079 188, and you can communicate through text message. I know it can be hard for people to talk about their emotions, so this is a great service that people can still access with support. Now, lastly, before I go, one other little fun thing that you can do if you want to show your support for the community is if you jump on to the Wear It Purple Day website, you can download these little Instagram frames, and you can pop a little photo of yourself on there, and that's something you can pop up on your social media channels. You can pop it on your email signature. You can send it to friends. Again, it just shows that support and that love for the community and that acceptance. So firstly, I would like to say a massive thank you to Joseph and Ricki for coming along today. Thank you for participating and answering the questions, giving us a bit of insight and some understanding into what your story is and what your background is, and also what Wear It Purple Day means to you. So it was really appreciated from myself, and I'm sure the attendees absolutely loved it as well. Did you both like to say anything at all about today?
It's been a wonderful experience. Please reach out to me. It's rick@student.unimelb.edu.au or lgbtiq@gsa.unimelb.edu.au. Happy to chat, happy to connect on social media in any platform. Let's spread the love. Let's all connect. We have so much we could achieve so much if we work together as a community and learn from each other. At any age, you know, I'm 52, but my mind is still saying I'm 20. So don't let age or disability of someone be a barrier. Let's all learn from each other. You know, it's a wonderful way. Thank you so much.
Amazing. Joseph, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Absolutely. I hope this has started some conversations. It'll given you some tools and resources to be able to start those conversations within your own community. I also like to touch on those resources you said for those people that just want to talk or catch up or ask someone. Don't underestimate them. Absolutely talk to them, email them, send a text. I know I found it physically hard to say the words when you are going through that situation for yourself. So having an option to actually text someone, I know that was so much easier for me. And it doesn't lock you in, it's not, you have to start up a weekly text now. It's just, even if you just talk with them for 5 minutes, it just reassures you and puts your mind at ease. So absolutely don't underestimate those resources. Anything, absolutely anything you need help with, give them a call, text, or email. It's, it will be the best for yourself. But yeah, I hope this starts a lot of conversations and keeps the ball rolling. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And just to reiterate that about resources, this has been recorded and it will be an on-demand resource. So students will be able to access this through your student app in the on-demand section. And for any staff who need to access this, by all means, feel free to send me an email and I can organize to get this across to you. But on behalf of everyone, we're so glad that you came today. We're so glad that you got involved in the discussion and hopefully you learned a little bit about it. And hopefully it's maybe answered some questions that you might have. But as we said, start that conversation, keep that conversation going. And if you need to reach out for any information, you're more than welcome to contact either of us. So on that note, have a great weekend and thanks for today, guys.
Yeah.